Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another What We Really Learned from the past Chelsea game. This time, sadly, after another defeat. Leicester City 2, Chelsea 0. And of course, unless you've been living under a rock, you know the situation that's going on at Chelsea. Is Lampard going to get sacked? Some people backing him, some people being extremely aggressively against him. And to discuss all of that, the game today, and of course, will Lampard be sacked? Who will be his replacement if he does? I have probably the best man to talk about all of this. The man himself, Mr. Dan McCarthy. If you don't know him on Twitter, what you're doing, his link is down in the description. So do check him out. Of course, he also has a podcast with Simon Phillips, so do check that out as well. But Dan, how you doing? Let's try to ignore last night's result just in general. How you doing?
Appreciate you having me on, buddy. Yeah, doing well. Still kind of reeling from the result last night and, just waking up here in LA and, looking up the platform real quick, and it seems to be pretty negative and pretty upset, which is understandable. I think we all want Chelsea to win. So, but yeah, very excited to come on and talk about it, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. I thought before getting into anything else, some people might not know you. And if they don't, I thought, how about you introduce yourself, what you've done so far, where you are right now, and what puts you into a position that, you are probably one of the best people to talk about in this current situation.
Yeah, I would say, I've got a long background in the game of football, had a playing career, fortunately, for a long time. And then ended up switching over, transitioning into the coaching role, which I do now. So I'm a full-time coach over here in Los Angeles. I moved to LA about 6 years ago from the UK. I was born in London as well, just like many Chelsea supporters. So a lot of people think I'm American, but I'm actually English, as you could probably tell now. So yeah, and obviously spent time at Chelsea, as many people will know now, and just kind of kept friends and connections from that within the club, which is luckily where I can kind of get some stuff and hear whispers and stuff. And obviously I share what I can. Obviously, some things you can't share, some things you can't give out. But, yeah, just share what I can and try and help out the Chelsea community. Hence why I switched my Twitter account about a year ago or whatever it was now. So that's where I'm at now.
Brilliant. Perfect. See, I told you guys, he knows what he's talking about. And obviously, last night's game, it was disappointing. I know that Dan is obviously a supporter of Frank Lampard. He does like him. He does think he should stick around, at least for the time being. But, of course, if I'm wrong, he will correct me in a second. But the situation is obviously questionable. The results have been poor since after that Leeds game, really. I know we got that victory over Fulham last week, but ever since then, really, the results have been poor. But it's losing to Arsenal quite badly. A draw against Aston Villa, who, yes, are in form, but realistically, with the squad we had, should probably be beating them. Man City was a real bad result, even if the 3-1 at the end probably made it look a bit better than it was. And it was kind of similar last night. Yeah, we had a couple of moments, had a penalty awarded and then overturned. But it was rightly so overturned. And then, Leicester could have scored a fourth, fifth in the second half. And, it really didn't look good. And first of all, I think the first question I have is, why do you think he changed it so drastically in terms of lineup? I know he didn't change it completely, but out of nowhere, and I think for the first time in Lampard's reign, playing Kovacic just clearly the deepest, other than maybe the last 20 minutes against Fulham. But that was a 10-man Fulham. It's not quite Leicester, is it? So I don't understand why he did that. It was kind of a mix of a 4-2-3-1, a 4-4-2, a 4-2-4, whatever you want to call it, because Kai was high up next to Tammy very regularly. So I didn't understand that in the first place. Do you have any sort of idea why he did that, or is it something that baffles you a bit as well?
Yeah, it was interesting. It was expected just because of what he put out against Fulham, and kind of the players he left out. If I'm going to be vague and very frank, no pun intended, I think it's still Lampard trying to figure out his best team. And I know people are probably thinking, well, it's been a while now, and it has. But we did sign a lot of players. Nobody signed 6 players who are going to be potentially starting, right, in your 11. That's over half the team. So that's what screams to me, that we're still trying to figure out our best team, best formation. And also, I think you're going to come in that with Lampard's stubbornness to play a certain formation, a certain system, because everyone keeps coming at him, right, saying, well, what's your system, what's your philosophy? And I'm sure I know Lampard's seeing that, and he's kind of wanting to respond to that. So I think it's them two things coming together. Laurenz trying to figure out, best team, but also what our best system is. And yeah, the rotation, people liked, as I said in my article, which I wrote, and it's out this morning, people liked the lineup. When you looked at it, people liked it, right? And it looked good on paper. But even I liked the lineup on paper, but I was also worried about the system it was being played within. Kovacic, as you say, playing as a DM, I don't fancy that. I tweeted before the game that Mason Mount was going to play between 6 and an 8. He was always going to play a little bit deeper. but kind of float up when he could. And obviously, you mentioned Havertz was higher up. It just didn't work. It just didn't work. We lost the midfield battle. Also said in my article, I spoke to a couple of people before the game. We lost the midfield battle. And that was key, especially against a team like Leicester, who transition and counter-attack so quickly, especially with Ndidi and James Maddison and them guys flying forward. So, yeah, in terms of the lineup, to kind of summarise, it was experimental, I think. It's still trying to figure out our best team, but let's be honest, Lampard got it wrong. Yeah,
he did. And Aziz King in the chat did say Reece was so poor yesterday. Do you think it was kind of a rash decision playing him? Because he didn't seem fully fit. He already didn't seem fully fit when he played against Arsenal. And he didn't seem fully at it yesterday. I don't know whether this is fitness, whether it's confidence, whether he just had a bad day. That happens to everybody. Shouldn't be too critical of, one of our best players so far this season having one off day. But he just didn't seem quite at it. Not quite, working hard enough, quite frankly, for the second goal, like just letting Maddison go. And there was just many situations where he was overrun. He's meant to be one of these people that is capable of playing the risky pass, the decisive over the top ball, and especially Hudson-Odoi made a fair few of those, and it usually, at least in my view or however how I perceived it, happened when Reece was on the ball and those balls weren't played to. Do you think he just isn't fit, or did he just have an off day?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest with you, Laurenz. I think in answer to your first question, he played Reece James because of the threat of Harvey Barnes and Vardy, the pace they have up front. That's why he played him, to try and counteract that. I think we've seen Azpilicueta, great servant, loyal to the club and brilliant player and a decent enough backup, right? But his legs are going. His pace is going, right? And I think against that pace, he could have got murdered, to be honest, for lack of a better word. And I think he's, I've been there as a coach, and I think many others have had. If you've got your best player and he's 70%, 80%, you're probably going to go with it. You're probably going to try it, And unfortunately, sometimes it goes wrong, like you mentioned against Arsenal. Apparently it did, and then obviously last night. So yeah, Reece was poor. I think he would stand up and say that, kind of testament to his character, right? He's a pretty honest guy, and I think he would say that as well. And he was very poor for the second goal. It was Rudiger didn't do himself any favours, but it was Reece who failed to backtrack. And I'll be honest, I like Reece. I think he's won me over a little bit, and I think he's going to be a very good player and a very good player for Chelsea. But this is not the first time he's failed to track back quick enough. I think his transition in defence is slow, and I think that's something he needs to improve pretty quickly. It takes him maybe a little bit of a while. So, yeah, I think the reason Lampard played him is because, he's pace and his tenacity and his energy. But, again, I think he's not 100% fit. And I think we're just kind of trying to fit him in where we can. But that can obviously backfire as it did.
Exactly. I mean, I thought his defensive work rate, I guess, and defensive positioning and defensive almost just ability, I guess, seemed to improve a little bit from the end of last season to this season. Obviously, especially when you're not 100%, you do tend to fall back into bad habits, I guess, if you want to, use that term. TK13 in the chat. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, do subscribe if you haven't already. Smash the like button. And if you want to make sure that we get to your chat question, don't hesitate to use the super chat function. Of course, you don't have to. Not making anyone pay for, to watch these things. Of course not. But TK13 has said to him it was absolutely baffling that Antonio Rudiger has returned both against Fulham and yesterday. Against Fulham, it did surprise me. Yesterday, I thought the idea was probably that Rudiger is our fastest centre-back, maybe bar Tomori, and Vardy's just really quick. I thought that was probably the logic, but Vardy just made it quite simple and moved over to Thiago Silva's side and made that a little bit redundant, I thought. Do you think that was the reason, or was there any other reasoning for Zuma out of nowhere being dropped?
Yeah, it's a good analysis. You notice that, Rudiger is, many players have said how fast Rudiger is. He's rapid. And also, good point that Vardy moved over to Thiago Silva to counteract that, which was I would have done the same thing. Yeah, I think Rudiger came in against Fulham, just rotational basis. As with Rudiger, I hate saying this word because it can get people riled up the wrong way. But the facts are there are politics in football. There just are. And Rudiger is a player that Chelsea are trying to sell for good money. He wants to play. He's actually a peripheral figure in the squad. Like, he's a big figure in the squad. He has a lot of influence, believe it or not, even though he doesn't play as much. And you've got to keep players happy. This is the whole problem, right, with Lampard having too big a squad. He's got to try and keep so many people happy and first teamers happy. And, they're not. So, with Rudiger, rotated him against Fulham. I think Lampard thought he could get the job done and, kill two birds with one stone and keep Rudiger happy, right? Rudiger ends up having a decent game. I thought he played okay. I thought he played well for what he had, And I think he's maybe looked at that and gone, okay, well, let's rotate. He retains his spot. He's played well. The pace he has helps. And, he's obviously clearly notified or clearly highlighted that Zuma maybe is in a bit of a poor run of form and he's struggling and we've got to change something. So, he's gone with it. The thing is with Rudiger, for all his pace and experience and the politics that you've got to keep him happy, he's always liable, to make a mistake or to switch off. And he's playing out the back is not great. I mean, some of the balls yesterday were good. He pinged out wide to Pulisic and Chilwell, I believe, were decent. But the simple kind of breaking the lines pass and the transitional passes in the midfield, he struggles with. And we gave the ball away a lot just for Leicester, to counterattack us and go at us.
Yeah.
So, I think, in hindsight, it was poor. It was poor to choose Rudiger, but hindsight's a wonderful thing at the end of the day. But I have kind of realised now that maybe Rudiger is even more so not the answer.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Rudiger has great over-the-top balls at times, at least. But then just when he's pressured, and exactly those passes that you mentioned, through the lines passes or just under pressure, whether it's pushing a bit higher and almost being a DM or as a centre-back, that's when he struggles. And even though Zuma looks completely unorthodox when he does pass and looks like he shouldn't be capable of it, he's actually much better than he looks, I think. But enough about the lineup, I would say. Let's talk about the game. It's been another one of those. We've been all right, and then somehow we concede a stupid goal, a bit like the Sheffield United one when we can't defend a short corner, basically getting a 1-2 played around you, and then you're just done out. And obviously, I don't know which Leicester player it was that completely scuffed the ball just inside the box for it even to fall to Ndidi, but then for that to hit the inside of the post and going in, and of course with the run that we are in, with the lack of confidence that clearly is there within the squad, you did see that for the next 15, 20, 25 minutes, you could argue that we was just not at it. We couldn't keep the ball. We couldn't transition any, passing plays. We couldn't get the ball from defense to attack. And we have so much of the ball every game, and it's like 70%, 75%, 65%. And it's always just passing between the right back and the left back and maybe the DM. That's always where the ball stays. And we never quite get it to the front three, front four. And when we do, they lose it too quickly. So it's just really, really frustrating. But we did concede that early goal. Then we get the penalty awarded, like I touched on earlier already. It is overturned, correctly overturned, but still disappointingly overturned. We have the free kick. I was sat there saying, Mason, it's way too close. Don't go, either go under the wall or don't go like direct, right? Like lay it off or do something. But, he didn't. Goes for a goal kick, and we just can't defend a simple goal kick. And that's where it becomes a little bit frustrating. I mean, is it as simple as to blame Lampard for that? No, of course it isn't. But it's certainly, whether it's the rest of the staff, Lampard and the players, we should be defending a simple corner kick better, because Leicester City's striker isn't Andy Carroll. It's Jamie Vardy that won the header against Rudiger, and that shouldn't be happening. Like, as the centre-back, you should make sure that doesn't happen, let alone the drifting off after, and obviously Reece James not tracking the run. You should stop it just before that, in my opinion. But realistically, at least maybe you thought differently, but I thought once we was 2-0 down, that was it. I didn't think we would be coming back, or do you disagree with that?
Just to kind of answer the last question, and I'll go backwards. Yeah, I didn't think so either. When we went 2-0 down, Leicester are too good of a team, and so tactically astute, because Brendan Rodgers is a very good tactician. They were set up to not lose that game. They've done very well in the second half to not really give us too much. So I agree with you. It was Harvey Barnes that mishit the shot, which ended up going to Ndidi. And as I wrote in my article, it's not an excuse, because there were no excuses. It's very typical right now. Like, let's be honest, Wilfred Ndidi is a fantastic football player, by the way. But his goal scoring abilities are not his favourite thing to do, even though he loves scoring against Chelsea, by the way. But he's mishit it. It's a great goal, but he's mishit it. And it's gone off the post and it's gone in. Edouard Mendy, no chance. That doesn't happen all the time, right? But it's just kind of typical, right? That a player who doesn't really score much on the edge of the area slice one into the goal 5-6 minutes in, we're 1-0 down already. It's just very typical of the scenario right now. But again, not an excuse. Leicester hadn't scored from a set piece, I don't believe, in the league before that. I don't know if you count that because it kind of came off of a set piece, but at the end of the day, they still haven't, the facts are before the game, they hadn't scored. And we've apparently improved in improving and attacking set pieces, right? So it just wasn't good enough, as you say. In terms of the Maddison goal, switch. And we're pushing, and the penalty decision, it's another one that's kind of like, oh, here we go again. Like, it's margins, and it's true, it is margins, but you have to create your own luck. You have to, both decisions were correct. The PK one, the penalty one, and the offside to Timo. They're frustrating, but they're both correct. And, it can be very, when it rains, it pours, and it felt like that. But you create your own luck. Good sides create their own luck. Good sides keep pushing, and we didn't. And we kind of felt sorry for ourselves, I think, not getting a penalty. And then 2-3 minutes later, they go down the other end with a simple long ball and score. And that's just naive. That's inexperience. It's naive. It's lack of communication. It's laziness from the players. And you can blame Lampard all you want tactically for that. And I blame him for a lot of things he did yesterday, but not that, because that's just a long ball which Rudiger and James didn't snuff out. Simple as that. And it was way too easy. So this is where I'm not fully Lampard out, because you can't just blame Lampard for everything, but it's also not fully the players. So Lampard has to take some blame. It has to be collective. You know, it can't be one or the other, because it's just simply not. You know, so definitely a collective thing for sure. And yeah, when Leicester went 2-0 up, it was definitely, I felt, game over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we did get a $5 donation here, which I massively appreciate. But we'll get to the discussion of, does Lampard get sacked? And if he does, who comes in instead of him? You said here, Tuchel or Enrique. We'll get to that later. It just doesn't quite fit, but trust me, I will get to your question. And like I said, thank you for the donation. And then we went into the second half. Fair enough. In the first half, we had a couple of moments. There was one nice piece of football, which, in my opinion, we actually haven't seen in a good while, when Havertz just about did manage to spin the guy in the box and could have done a little something, probably in better form does. And the moment where Hudson-Odoi was in down the right and decided to go for goal rather than cross it for Tammy, or I think Chilwell at the far post. Those were the only two good moments we really had, other than the offside goal and that penalty that's not given. Maybe you disagree, but we didn't do anything else. We tried to cross it a few times. Tammy never got on the end of anything. You know, Fofana, the centre-back, literally dealt with every single thing that came his way. Justin, the left-back, kind of the same. Hudson-Odoi struggling a little bit. Although, no criticism at all to Hudson-Odoi. That's what happens when you don't play your best attacker in any big games, and then you throw him in for one of the biggest ones. Can't expect him to be incredible straight away after he only plays 15 minutes for the last month, and not at all before that, realistically. That's kind of what you get, in all honesty. But that was the frustrating thing. We go into the second half, no changes at halftime. Did I necessarily think we needed them, or would they change much? Not really. But to see a bit of a change, to see a bit of fighting spirit, trying to go against what's going against us on the pitch in the first half, I would have liked to see. And the players didn't personify it, I thought. We weren't, I mean, we were trying at the start of the second half, don't get me wrong, but we weren't doing anything with it. And Leicester kind of did what City did, get 2 or 3 early goals, and then just sit back, because they know we can't break that down at the moment. And then they tried to hit us on the break, and they could have scored easily, 3 or 4, if not 5. And, Mendy actually made a fair few good saves, fair play to him. But what then really frustrated me, and I'm not sure if you even agree with this, but the longer the second half went on, it just seemed more and more players' heads dropped. More and more players didn't look bothered anymore. More and more players didn't look like they were trying. One of the only ones that looked like it towards the end was Mason Mount, who was riling up even the linesman, saying not to touch him, which is a fair point with the current world situation and how we're apparently not meant to celebrate goals. Maybe the linesman shouldn't touch players, but he was the only one that was there. Do you agree with that assessment, first of all, and where do you think that comes from? Because obviously a lot of people have turned it into, the players are against Lampard, he's losing the dressing room, it's all led by the Germans, especially started by Timo Werner and whatever else, all of this crap that I personally don't believe, but he's out there anyway. Did you see any of that, or did you just see players that knew they weren't going to win and kind of gave up in themselves?
Yeah, I said in my article, for the first time it did seem and feel like the players had kind of given up, which is scary, because as a coach, and I know, when you lose the players, you're in trouble. I've seen the rumours that he's lost the dressing room. That's not the case. Are a couple or a few disgruntled because they're not playing? Of course. Every professional footballer who's not playing is not going to be happy. Or maybe unless you're the third choice goalkeeper, right? But you're going to be disgruntled. Rudiger's going to be disgruntled. Christian's, these are international football players who want to play at the Euros, right? They're going to be disgruntled. And that's not all Lampard's fault. The club should have got rid of players. And that's also, you can argue again that the club is being too picky on who they sell and how much they sell for. Sometimes it's just best to get a deal and get them out. Chelsea don't operate like that, which is fine. Marina wants to get a good deal, and she's done so well at it. Fair play. But it only puts more pressure on Lampard, right? Like the Alonsos of this world as well. So, yeah, of course there's a disgruntlement because people are not playing. But has he lost the dressing room? No. They still want to play for Frank Lampard, and they still believe, that he's the man to take them forward. Bad runs of form happen, and it's confidence. I keep screaming this word. It's confidence. Like, confidence is the biggest thing in football. Mentality is mentality can be bigger than physicality. To be honest, it's the players have not become bad players overnight. Timo Werner's not become terrible. It's just confidence. His confidence is gone, and Lampard's got to find a way to bring that back. I think even Lampard's confidence might have gone, but they are human. They are human, and they have to find a way to get it back. I wouldn't say he's lost the dressing room. No, I think there's players that are upset and disgruntled. Absolutely, squad size, playing time, possibly a couple of decisions that have been a bit strange for everybody, right? But yeah, I think they're still backing him, and I think Lampard realises that. But something, obviously, as I said in my article again, tactically and team-wise, something has to change. Whether it's, we just go 4-2-3-1, which is a more balanced formation, and we kind of try to double pivot and put the right players in that double pivot, by the way, to succeed. Something's got to change. So I will say that. Something's got to change.
Yeah, no, I think we can all agree on that something clearly needs to change. The only thing that does worry me a little bit, of course, it's a crazy season, and everyone keeps going, back to that, saying even 9 points off Leicester isn't like the end of the world, because I think at this point we probably all have to agree that Liverpool, United, and City will make up 3 spots of those top 4, and it's kind of fighting for the last spot in there. Maybe United drop off again. I guess you don't know for sure with how their last few years have gone, but at this point, it does sure look like it. My issue with this is kind of that the longer the season goes on, once all of these teams are out of Europe, the whole form thing comes a lot less into it. A lot less teams are in bad form by the end of the season. A lot less good teams, at least. That's why we caught up on Leicester so much last season. Okay, kind of similar situation now, so I guess it is still possible. But Leicester will get more and more confident. Will get more and more experienced in dealing with this top 4 fight as well. So that's what's worrying me a little bit. I'm like, yeah, it's true that everyone's dropping points, but will the right teams for us drop more points than us is what I'm kind of worried about. It's good to hear that you think the players are still behind him, and it sure does look like it for the most part, other than, like I said, for the last, say, 20 minutes, half an hour last night. And, I mean, you touched on Werner. If anything, I thought he looked better than he has for, 2-3 months. Last night when he came on, tried to go past people, obviously scored, which was marginally offside. Can't really blame him for that one. So a few small positives. We have to clutch onto those, I guess. But you touched on tactics have to change, and you touched on 4-2-3-1, but who should play there, or you playing the right people in that double pivot if we switch to a 4-2-3-1. Now, first of all, who would be that? First of all, obviously Kante would have played yesterday had he been fit, right? And that is something else that's just unfortunate that Kante just happens to be injured for the most important games at some point, last season as well and this season, which is frustrating. But would you personally change to a 4-2-3-1, and who would be that double pivot? And this whole tactics by Lampard situation, just crossing and this and that, and crossing are just vibes, what a lot of people, going about. I personally don't agree with this, but I do see a lack of, for example, triangles when the fullbacks get the ball. Every time the fullback gets the ball, it has to go back to the centre back or straight to whoever the DM is. There's never an option to the winger, to the attacking 8. There's never that forward option to actually progress the ball once we get the ball out wide for the fullbacks. And that's something, if we want to use the fullback so much, that kind of makes the whole thing a bit redundant. Then you might as well go down the middle, in my opinion, if you don't create those passing opportunities for those players that you want to rely on so much. So those are the questions I have. I'm like, but surely they have to be fixed somewhere. It can't be that difficult to tell them, all right, get Chilwell a passing option. This shouldn't be the most impossible thing to at least give him an option, because the amount of times we see Chilwell having to play these chip balls that can never go to anybody, it's ridiculous. Could he be doing things better? I'm sure, but it's still frustrating to me. I'm like, help the guy out, help him out a little bit. But I know I asked you a lot of questions. Then, first of all, would you play a 4-2-3-1? And then who would be your double pivot in that?
Yeah, personally, I would kind of come away from what I'm trying to do if I'm Lampard, right? It's easy for me to say sat here in my office, but, I would personally come away from what we're trying to do right now, and I would just solidify the team. I would put the team that's defensively the most stable, and then try and build from that and try and rely on maybe a bit of magic to get us a win. One of our front 3 attacking players to get us a win. Kind of like we did against Fulham, really. We needed a piece of magic from Mason, right, to get a win. And we were defensively better. I know it's Fulham, but Fulham was still a team in form, right? And still were dangerous. So I would actually go with a 4-2-3-1. It's a formation I've played and I use a lot because it's just very balanced. You can do both sides of the game with it. Who I would play in the pivot would depend on obviously fitness and form, but the obvious would be obviously Conte in a pivot, and then I would even go, if I would give Billy a chance in there, and just to kind of see what he can do. I think at this point you haven't got nothing to lose, right? He seems very confident in tough areas. He's come on in games we're losing or it's tight, and he's done very well. I can see a little bit of a trend coming with Billy that kind of comes with Callum Hudson-Odoi, that people think he's going to be our saviour. He's not going to be our saviour. I know people get very excited and jump on these trains very quickly. He's a very good player. and he deserves to play. But he's not going to fix the team. So I would maybe go with him. If not, I would actually try Mount again in that role, because I feel like Mason is one of those who's very good at kind of coming to hurt the ball from the back, which we need to do, right? Let's be honest. And I'll touch on what you said in a minute, which is a very good point. I think Mason's very good at dropping in to get the ball, and Mason is up and down. He has the ability to go up and down. So I would actually try him in there. And then if you go with a 10, you can look at Havertz in there. Havertz needs to play further up the field, absolutely. But Havertz also needs to give more. I'll be honest. People have seen my tweet. I've tweeted on Havertz, and I've spoken a lot on Havertz and said how much I rate him, and I really like the player, and I think he's going to be fantastic if put in the right system. But I can also be critical of him, and he needs to give more. He needs to try. And I'm sure he's trying, but try something different. Because he's not showing us his abilities, and maybe he's not being put in the right system and position. You can argue that as well, and I'd agree with you. But he personally needs to do more if he thinks he's going to be the number 10, or he's going to be starting every game. Because every time he's had an opportunity, bar one or two opportunities he's had recently, he's not screaming, "Start me, start me, start me!" Right? So it doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter how big a signing you are, or how big you are, how big your reputation is. You play the best players that are playing. So if Havertz isn't playing well, don't play him. If Werner isn't playing well, don't play him. And by the way, politics comes back into that, and I'm sure we can talk about that a lot more. But because there is reasons why certain players play at certain times. So yeah, that's what I would try, or even Ziyech in the 10. I wouldn't mind seeing Ziyech in the 10, and then going Pulisic and Callum out wide. Because I agree with you. Callum deserves. He was poor yesterday, but most of the team was, and also you can't really expect much, right, when he hasn't played a lot recently and consistently against big teams. So, I would give the 4-2-3-1 a go at this point, and then that's who I would kind of be looking forward to go. I think Kovacic hasn't done much to be playing. I don't think Jorginho. I don't hate him, but I just don't think he's really screaming to be starting right now. So that's what I would probably try. And just to touch on your final point there, Laurenz, the moving the ball between the centre backs is extremely frustrating. Like, I get very frustrated watching that. And the reason for it is two reasons. Number one, there's not enough movement up the field to play a ball in. But also you can argue that there is, because I could probably count 8 to 10 times where Pulisic, Callum, Tammy made runs in behind, and they were good runs, and they weren't played. And I think that, and I'll tell you the reason they weren't played, lack of confidence. That is absolutely what that is. If that's us fit and firing like we were against Leeds, that ball goes over 110%. So that's a confidence thing. That's a personal thing. And Lampard can't do much about that. He can tell them from the sideline, ping it. But at the end of the day, that player's going to have to do it or not, right? And then, Chilwell, especially Chilwell, Reece James too, but especially Chilwell, just so tentative. And I think the commentator said that, right? He said, God, he keeps going back. And he does. And that kind of, again, it screams to me confidence. I think Ben Chilwell flying forward and being confident, he goes forward every time. We've seen Ben Chilwell. He's up and down, flying, taking people on. We've seen him score goals, right, when he first signed. Yeah. So I think, again, it's a confidence issue. He looks forward, doesn't see the movement. Pulisic doesn't move enough off the ball, by the way. And he goes back because it's safe. And that's unfortunately the thing. And people scream tactics. Yes, we could probably change something tactically to get players in positions further up the field. But it's also definitely a confidence thing which comes from the players, because they're not willing to take that risk in fear of giving the ball away. And subsequently, we give the ball away and Leicester score. So you can't blame them, right? So it's just a bit of a mess, to be honest. It's a tactically and a confidence mess, to be honest.
It honestly is. And that's where, and I'm not trying to say, get David Luiz back, but that's when you're in a situation when someone that will never lose confidence is a player like David Luiz. Someone that will always play that over-the-top ball when someone's making a run is like David Luiz. And that's probably the kind of players that we're missing right now. Not him as a centre-back, maybe, because there were too many frailties, a bit like we touched on with Rudiger already.
Characters.
Exactly, characters. Because people talk about leaders, and Mason Mount clearly is, to some extent, a leader. Maybe not quite physically the frame to be a almost, or let's say, intimidating leader. Reece James has it, but he's generally a bit of a quiet guy, so maybe not the best in that as well. Thiago Silva barely speaks any English. And then Antonio Rudiger, he likes to shout around in that, but he's not exactly the leader that's going to rile everyone up and get everyone changing the situation right now on the pitch. And that's why I think we're struggling. And that's why I also felt was a bit of the team selection thinking by Lampard against Fulham, to play all of the experienced guys out of nowhere and, get a bit more experience and leadership in there. But then again, I'm like, okay, you did that against Fulham, and now you're going to the much more difficult game. and you don't play any of them other than Thiago Silva. So that was another confusing thing. Of course, we know Aspie is struggling a lot, and I guess Giroud picked up an ankle injury anyway, but is he at 34 capable of playing 2, games in 3 days from the start? Who knows? I don't know. I mean, Thiago Silva was capable of it, so you'd assume Giroud is probably able to. But it's just problems left, right, and centre these days. And I guess we get to that final discussion. Of course, I've seen you say it on Twitter. You've said it to me personally. You don't think, and I hope I'm not saying anything not meant to you. I've heard he's not happening. He's not getting sacked. Obviously, no one seems sure. Fabrizio Romano said apparently, there's a lot of disappointment going on within the Chelsea board at the moment. There will be crunch talks happening today. Don't know whether that's him that said it, but something could happen in the next 24 hours or not. I personally don't know. I was sat there last night after the game doing my post-match review thinking, I don't see how he's not getting sacked after this. But I also said to myself, Chelsea aren't Chelsea of 3, 4, 5 years ago anymore. We could have sacked Conte in the second season, midway through the season. We didn't. We could have sacked Sarri midway through the season 2 years ago, and we didn't. Are we going to do that with Lampard, who I am sure also within the Chelsea hierarchy stands on a little bit of a higher, let's say, pedestal than all the other ones did, bar maybe Mourinho? Of course, there was different kind of issues with Mourinho. So will we even sack him? I don't know. The problem just is what I thought. If they think top 4 is gone anyway, it just depends on who they want. If they want Tuchel, they might as well bring him in now. If they want Nagelsmann, well, you need an interim manager. Is there anyone out there? No. So then I guess you might as well stick with Lampard until the end of the season. So I guess that's where the discussion comes in. Who do they want? Because, if they don't sack him soon, unless results obviously improve drastically, I think it's very obvious that they want Nagelsmann. Personally, I mean, don't really see anyone else out there. Maybe Hasenhüttl, I guess. But I think that is as much as I rate him, I'm Austrian, he's Austrian. I would love that, the whole idea of an Austrian manager out of nowhere at Chelsea. But
David Alaba captain as well, yeah.
Exactly, throw in another offer. Apparently, we already made one. Who knows whether that's true? But that's kind of where I come from. Let me just, how about you just sum up the whole situation with what you think with Lampard and what you think will happen depending on certain results from now on, I guess.
Yeah, so I tweeted because there was obviously panic on the timeline, right, that Lampard was getting sacked in Leicester. And I tweeted, I was about to play a round of golf, I'll be honest, and I was reading some of the comments and I was reading the mess on Twitter, and not like trying to be a hero or the saviour, but I felt like from what I've been informed and told, right, that I could help by maybe clarifying the point that Lampard will not be sacked. So I simply just put Lampard will not be sacked tomorrow. And that tweet obviously blew up, and I took dog's abuse for it, and my block list probably tripled at that point, which is fine. I'm old enough now. I think people can see me now. I'm old enough to not be worried about a 16-year-old battering me on Twitter. So, if you want to do that, that's fine. But so that's what I was told. That's what I was informed, and I was told that pretty confidently. And some of the people you're mentioning and sources you're mentioning, a lot of these sources talk to each other. So this is not just, who I'm connected with at the club. This is also other people who are connected to the club and other good sources who I talk to and other people talk to, right? I'm not going to obviously clarify who and when, but so this is not a random shot in the dark. So I was told that Lampard wouldn't be sacked, and here we are a day after. Yeah, he's having this, apparently according to, it was ex-West Ham employee who said that Chelsea are going to be having crisis talks. And I speak to X, and I spoke to him privately, and we talked about that, and similar connections and people within the club. And talks will happen because they would happen. Of course, they would happen, right? But I still don't believe, from what I'm told and what I personally believe, right, and my gut instinct, I don't believe he's being sacked yet. I still think he's got time, and I'm still told he has time. I'm still told that as well. So I'm going to go with that. I could be wrong, right? Chelsea have, like you say, Chelsea are different, which is why Lampard maybe has time. I've written about this. I did an article on Abramovich and how he's changed, which has come around. And, the club has changed. There's a sustainability factor now that wasn't there 10 years ago. In terms of how we run the club, not just managers, in terms of how we run the club, how we recruit, how the academy's going. So Chelsea's different. And unfortunately, some fans on the platform have not seen Chelsea of old and Chelsea of new. They've only seen one side or the other. So that's where the kind of clash of two worlds comes in, right? And I tried to stay on the balanced side. And same thing with my journalism, right? I tried to stay kind of balanced. I know people are very aware that I'm Lampard in, but I try to write as if I'm a fan and not just a journalist. I've always, in my bio, it says fan first, journalist, or whatever second. I'm not, a white tick verified journalist like a Simon Johnson or Fabrizio who are very good at their jobs, right? And obviously do very well. But, I try to bring something different where I'm also a fan, but I'm also someone that's connected, luckily. So, yeah, just to kind of summarise, Lampard, I'm still told and believe, has time. One or two more bad results, and he could go. But I don't see him being sacked this week. I don't even know when our next game. I haven't even looked at the time of the next game. Do you know, Laurenz, by any chance?
Yeah, Luton on Sunday.
Right. So, I mean, unless we lose that game somehow, Lampard's not being sacked.
But will that even matter? Like, of course, they want to win a trophy, but will the FA Cup, even if we crazily do lose to Luton, will that even be a game that the board care that much about realistically? Because it's not one that has a significant financial impact on anything, whether we even win, if we win the FA Cup.
Yeah, you would think not, but the Chelsea do care about the FA Cup. When expectations and goals are set out at the start of the year, Chelsea want their manager to do well in the FA Cup. It's become a bit of a mainstay in our trophy cabinet, right? And we've done well in it in recent years. So I think Chelsea are now very aware and very wanting to do well. So yeah, it does matter. It does matter. I mean, not as much as obviously the Champions League and the Premier League, but let's be honest, we're not winning either of those. So Chelsea would love to win the FA Cup. The League Cup, not as much. That's kind of a bonus, right? And obviously we're already out of that. So, they would. No, the FA Cup does matter, I would say. But I don't see us losing that game. There's no way we can lose that game. Let's be honest. So I don't see
not.
Yeah, right. So I don't see him being sacked there either. So I would love to, and I know some people actually tweet on my tweet saying, he's just going to tweet the day after, right, and go, well, I was right, and I don't want to be that guy who says, oh, by the way, I'm right, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it helps me, it makes me more credible, and obviously whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm great. That makes me better, fantastic. But I also am a fan, and I also want the best for the club. And if Lampard had to go tomorrow to make the club better, I would probably want that. And that's probably a little bit, whoa, people might be like, whoa. But I am a Chelsea fan, and I want the best for the club. So I just kind of tweet out what I believe and also what I'm told. And that was what I was told, and that's what I believe, that Lampard wouldn't be sacked after this game. He hasn't been sacked, so we move on again. Were you kind of wanting me to say about other managers as well?
I guess. Well, in a sense of say he doesn't get sacked now, say the results improve a little bit, whether we by the end of the season manage to scrape top 4 or not, whether we come 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever. What is the situation then? Is it, in as far as you are aware, and as far as you obviously can say publicly, is the plan to, unless things so drastically change that out of nowhere we go back to almost how we played, against the likes of Sheffield United and Leeds and Burnley, but against actually good teams, not just the bottom 3. Will that be the only way he stays, or is there a realistic chance of him staying past the summer in the first place, or do they already have someone like Nagelsmann in their minds, I guess?
I would say, they probably have him in their minds, but there's been no approach to Nagelsmann. There's been no, hey, would you fancy taking over in the summer? I don't think it's got to that point yet. Is the pressure definitely on further than it's ever been? Absolutely. And is it closer to that point than ever? Absolutely. But I don't believe in what I'm told. We're not at that point yet in terms of Nagelsmann. I would probably want Nagelsmann out in 3, personally. But it's way too early to be speculated if he's coming or not. And a lot of people are tweeting, right, and saying, let's just get Nagelsmann in because he won't with Werner. I know what you're saying, but that's not how football works. You don't
it really isn't.
Build a project around some guy who can get the best out of one player. Like, that's not. We don't do that. That's what Sarri did with Jorginho, and it works for a certain point, right? And I actually like Sarri, so I'm not bashing Sarri. But we understand it's not a long-term thing, right? And Chelsea want a long-term project. And Nagelsmann, young, good coach, German, or speaks German, whatever. So it makes sense, but it's not at that point yet. In terms of Tuchel and Allegri, Fabrizio, who I speak to as well, he's obviously tweeted a lot on this, and his updates are very good on this, and I haven't really jumped on this yet. Because sometimes, when other sources are doing it, you don't really need to repeat it or need to kind of clarify it.
It's called copy, paste merchant again, then.
Exactly. There's no point in doing that. So that's a lot of people will say, well, Dan hasn't tweeted on it, or Dan, you're late. Well, sometimes there's no point in me tweeting on it. It's already out there. So he's correct. And I've spoken to him, I've spoken to others, and he's correct in saying that, Tuchel, he's desperate for the job, by the way, and I can guarantee you that. Tuchel wants this job. He wants it. He thinks he can do well with the team. He's tactically very good, Tuchel, so he thinks he can do a lot with the team. He thinks he can improve individuals, which he does. He likes the youth, and he's done well. Let's be honest. He's a good coach. There's some things he doesn't do well, and there's some things that the board don't like about him. which is sometimes the way he runs the club and the way he kind of speaks and some of the decisions he makes. The club are not 100% on that, and that's a reason why an approach hasn't been made yet, like a formal approach of fancy taking over. That hasn't happened because Chelsea's board are a little bit reluctant about that. And they also know that they can get him whenever they want. If Roman got on the phone now and said, give me Tuchel, it will happen. And Roman knows that. So he doesn't have to rush that. There's been no contact with Allegri.
Personally, if I can just jump in, personally, I hope there won't be, because I'm like, I don't want to go back to what we had with Conte already. Like, everyone knows Allegri is just Conte 2.0, maybe slightly better because he was slightly more successful with Juventus, especially in Europe, rather than just winning the Italian league. So there is that. But what we did ever since getting rid of Conte and appointing Sarri goes in the complete opposite direction of appointing someone like Allegri. Some people go out and say, get Simeone. First of all, people need to understand Atletico Madrid are top of the league in Spain. They're going to... Exactly. They're probably going to batter us in a couple of weeks' time. And, we're not getting Simeone out of Atletico Madrid. Like, people need to get that into their heads. And for me, just Allegri, I don't want that again. I don't want to... We have to suffer. No, we've suffered enough. I don't want to do that again.
Well said. Well said. So, I think Roman sees that too, by the way, because there's been no contact. I think, Roman has cried for attacking free-flowing football for years. He's wanted to win, and he always will put winning first. But he's also been a bit of a mercurial in the fact that he wants his team to play a certain way, hence why he pursued Pep Guardiola so much before he went to City and Barcelona. He gave Pep Guardiola a blank check, and Guardiola just didn't believe in the project, which is fair enough. Chelsea were a newer team still, instability a little bit. He didn't believe in it. But Guardiola wants that, and that's why I think he likes Lampard and will back Lampard a little bit further, of course, along the fact that he's our best player of all time, you can argue, right? But also the fact that Lampard has told and said and presented the fact that he wants to play free-flowing attacking football. And we've seen that in moments, right? Against Leeds, we were on fire. When confidence is flowing and the team's in form, we saw some good football from Lampard's team. We weren't just going left back to centre back, switching it out. That's tactically we need to change something, but that's also a player thing. Tuchel could play that. He could definitely play that attacking football. But again, like I said, there's reluctance in a way because of the way he does things. There's not one complete package out there, which is another reason why Lampard is getting more time. There's no one out there that is screaming, hire me. Tuchel is, but Chelsea are not 100% adamant he's the right fit right now.
Do you think we would be in a different situation had PSG not snapped up Pochettino yet?
See, I'm glad you said it in a way because I like Pochettino. Like, I'm a massive fan. I would have taken him in a heartbeat. I think Chelsea missed a trick there, and I think Roman knows that. I think Roman, because I know the club liked Pochettino. They rated him. They would have. I think if the times were different, we would have taken Pochettino if we could, right? Because you've got to remember that Pochettino did coach Tottenham Hotspur, and he's a very loyal man. He didn't take the Barcelona job because he's loyalty to Espanyol. So he might not have actually taken the Chelsea. I don't know this, by the way. I've not been told this. It's just me talking as a fan. I don't know if he would have taken that job. I wish he would. I've read his book. I follow him. I really like him as a manager, and I think he could have done very well with his squad. But unfortunately, the timing just didn't work out. We kind of missed out on that one, which is, you can't be too upset, right? We are back in Lampard, and obviously this is weeks ago, and Lampard would never have been deserved to be sacked weeks ago. So you can't really say that, right? Hindsight's a wonderful thing. So in summary, Laurenz, I would say that I've been told and informed that Lampard still has a little bit more time, so get used to it. And then, no approach for Allegri as of now. Tuchel is desperate for the job and is just sitting there waiting for the job, but Roman hasn't made that phone call yet. He's not ready to make that phone call. He hasn't decided. And if I was a betting man, of all the three that are being linked right now, I'm hoping Lampard stays, by the way, as you probably know, and I want him to turn it around, and I think he can with time. I would say Nagelsmann is probably the biggest of the three, but you're not getting him anytime soon. And again, you've got to remember, these people have contracts, and Roman has spent a lot of money buying out players, and the Conte thing did not go down well. That payout was massive. So you've got to remember that too. And Chelsea are very much, affiliated with the business side of things now more than ever so.
Exactly. I mean, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, we do have nearly 200 people watching, so be sure to subscribe, smash the like button, that'd be good. Follow Dan, like I said already. And if you want to make sure that, of course, we're chatting to each other, right? So we can't get to every message that you guys put in the chat, especially when there is a lot of people watching. So if you want to make sure that I do get to your chat message, do use the super chat function. But what I want to touch on is, do you know, I'm sure you've heard about this, the whole PSG Baseksa here situation with the interview that Demba Ba gave. The way he painted Thomas Tuchel didn't exactly make him look great in terms of possible racism, whatever else. Obviously, no one has heard Tuchel's side of this story, which, as much as racism is an awful thing, and as much as Tuchel is the white guy here, even a white guy, shall we say, deserves to put his side of the story across, I guess. But do you think that plays any part of why, we aren't more willing to approach him, or is it just more past things, issues with the Dortmund board and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's just the way he kind of handles his business. Sometimes, like the way he speaks. Chelsea have had controversial characters in the past, let's be honest here, with Mourinho's and others. And when you're winning, it's fantastic, right? But I think Roman kind of wants to get away from that. I think Roman likes the sustainability and the squeaky clean image that kind of Lampard brings, and it only gives more attention and more love to Chelsea, right? I think Chelsea are perhaps not as hated as they were maybe 5 years ago from other, which doesn't really matter. Who cares, right? But I mean, Roman maybe kind of cares because it's a business for the end of the day for him, right? And the better and the more liked we are, and the more supported we are, the better it is for him. So yeah, I would say more Laurenz. It's just Tuchel kind of not. I wouldn't say they would worry too much about player opinions. Like if it's a good, not every player loves every coach, right? And if the coach is, there's people that hate Alex Ferguson. Players didn't love him, and you would still hire Alex Ferguson. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's more just kind of what Roman's seen from the way he's spoken and maybe some things he's done in the past that is the reason he hasn't clicked that button yet or made that phone call yet. Yeah,
I guess the situation is this, like you said, if results keep going bad, we will get rid. But what is the plan then? That's why I'm so questioning, because if they're not sure on Tuchel and they don't want him and they would prefer Nagelsmann, what do we do until then? Because there is no obvious, interims manager about. You're not going to get Tuchel until the summer. You're not going to get Allegri until the summer. What are you going to do? Are you actually going to call Avram Grant? Are you actually going to call Gus Hiddink again? That's what I mean. That's why I don't know. There isn't, to me, there is no interims manager out there that makes top four, even if we lose another 3 games, more likely than Frank Lampard does. So if top four is so far out of sight, at that point, just stick with Frank until the end of the season, make it end as good as we possibly can, I guess. And, if we can squeak a little, Lampard player pool signing in there, if we can somehow, maybe a bit of Rice. I don't know whether Rice will care that much to join us if Tuchel is in charge and Nagelsmann is in charge. I don't know. But maybe make use of that. But if they want Tuchel, I think they might as well. Like you say, I agree with you that stick with Frank. I've always been, whether that was back in the Mourinho days after we sacked him after losing to Leicester, funnily enough, whether it was not necessarily Conte, because the whole Costa situation did piss me off a little bit. But the same goes with Sarri. I've been kind of craving for a bit more long-term stability for a while. I've been in a situation where we've gone through rough patches, and whenever that's happened, we've gotten rid. Of course, the Mourinho one, we were 1 point off the relegation zone. That was extreme bad. So things, measures had to be taken, I guess. But I was always extremely curious what happens at Chelsea if we just see the bad run out. We've kind of seen it a little bit happen with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Manchester United. I mean, the amount of times he was meant to be about to be sacked. Of course, he's always turned it around in those games. Was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in our shoes last night, he probably would have beaten Leicester rather than lost again. That's kind of how he's still in his job. But, I mean, the guy got knocked out of the Champions League only a few months ago, and now they're kind of top of the league and everyone's loving him and whatever else. So there is also a way of going through things and sticking with the manager, and there is a chance it goes well. I think the reason why fans don't believe in that with Frank, obviously some people will hate, some people will criticize this and that and what they see on the pitch. But I think because Frank doesn't have any, I'm not sure if credibility is the right word, but any experience of showing that he's done it before, because, I mean, Derby isn't exactly going to count. And even then, okay, maybe you didn't expect him to win that playoff final, but he lost that as well. And he lost all the finals with us as well. So I think that's where the doubt comes from. But I don't know. I still watch our games, and Frank has this power, and I've said this public, and I've said this on videos and on Twitter as well. So Frank has this power. He speaks, and I'm immediately more satisfied, more happy, and I believe in it again. And then I see us play, and I doubt it all again. Maybe not last night, because even he seemed completely deflated, but usually that is the case. And I hope that's what he does to the players. But at some point, we need to see something on the pitch. And you touched on something earlier, a lot of new players. True. But if we have a lot of new players and it's not working, why doesn't he go back to the old ones in this situation where we are struggling so much? I know politics and he needs to play new players, but playing new players and still losing isn't exactly a solution for anybody either. So do you have an answer for why he doesn't go back to what worked last season?
Because of the outside pressure of playing Havertz, Werner, stuff like that. And I know people maybe don't want to hear that, right? I might not even believe it, but it is a thing that, there is a desperation from board level and around the club for the Germans to do well and for them to play. I know that people don't. I know it's not the most popular thing in the world, and I don't know even if I really should even mention it, to be honest. But here we are. But it's so many outside factors that go into this that people don't realize. People don't realize the extremities and the loopholes that happen within a football club, especially one like Chelsea, which is volatile at the best of times. Yeah. So it is what it is, and there's mistakes everywhere, to be honest, within the club. And right, that's okay, by the way, because we are going in a new direction. This is completely new for a lot of our staff, for our owner, for our approach in general. This is new. We haven't done this before, right? We haven't kind of built projects. We're not known for doing that as such. And if we have, they're short-term projects, right? Lampard was given 3 years, apparently, to have a project and to build it. And we're only halfway through that, just over. So it's all very new. But yeah, Lampard has to, I'll be honest, Lampard has to stop being he has to be a little bit less stubborn. Something has to change. And, he has to figure it out. That's the job. That's the job of a coach, of a manager, of a head coach. It's problem solving. It's extinguishing fires. And, he has to figure that out. And, he's not supported by the fact that there are politics and there are outside influences. That makes it harder for him. But he knew, Frank Lampard's a very, very clever football man. He knew exactly what he was getting into, and he knew exactly the extremities of the job. So this is not new to him. So, yeah, I would say, for me personally, you already know what I'm going to say. I think you stay with him until the end of the season. There's no point making a rushed appointment. We got away with that maybe with Gus Hiddink, but Gus is a different character. He's brilliant at what he does. But Avram Grant is not it, as the kids would say on Twitter. That is not it. And there's no one really else out there. You take a risk with Tuchel. That can go one or two ways, right? You hope optimistically that he would settle down. He would get the idea that he needs to build a project and he would kind of work more with Roman. And that's great. And that would be lovely, right? But you also run the risk of us going backwards, because we bring in a new philosophy, a new tactical identity, a new way of operating the club again. And we just go back. We just go backwards, and that project is now 3-4 years away rather than a year or two. If you maybe kept Lampard, who's going through the project more, or you bring in Nagelsmann, who will bring a new project, right? It's hard. It's hard, man. It's hard.
Do you see any manager that is more of a continuation of what Frank's trying to do rather than, going backwards or changing everything completely? Because my slight worry with Nagelsmann, as much as I like the guy and I like him as a coach and I like what Leipzig do, other than when they get battered 5-0 by Man United, a little bit of fear is in there that it would just end up like Sarri. Not because if he is like Sarri, but because once things don't go so well, especially if by that point fans are allowed back in the stadium, he will be that guy, but he hasn't won anything. He isn't big enough for Chelsea. That's what certain people said for Sarri. He hasn't won anything. He hasn't done this. We need the big managers. We need an Allegri. We need a Simeone because they've won things. And if things don't go well with Nagelsmann, I'm not sure whether, because if we start using this approach again of, all right, if things don't go well, we get rid. Will that loophole ever end? Isn't that what we're currently trying to do to stop this kind of cycle of death or whatever you want to call it? And isn't Nagelsmann going to have the exact same issue? And that's the only thing where I'm not necessarily overall tipping Tuchel over Nagelsmann, in my personal opinion, but just he has that edge that he has at least won things. Of course, the haters will say he's only won things for PSG and the Cup in Germany. So will they class that as enough to make a much of a difference compared to Nagelsmann? I don't know, but I still feel like that is an issue that Nagelsmann would have, and I still feel that he would end up like with Sarri, ending up with certain people sat in the ground, Yerdas as they're called, booing managers and booing certain players, and Nagelsmann signs a certain individual, and then fans out of nowhere don't like him and start booing him, and that's kind of why I don't want to go. But obviously, I don't want to go into the direction of we spent 250 million.
We're all uncertain, and that's not a manager problem. That's a fan base problem. That's a culture problem within our club. We're so used to hire and fire and success, which will not work anymore. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't. The game has changed. The club has changed. Whether you guys, me, you, Laurenz, people who are other fans of the club, right? Whether we like it or not, we are just fans. We like to think we're the most important component in the club, which we are up there, but we're not the owner. We're not running the show. And they'll do whatever they got to do to run the club, whether we say or not. And you can go back with Twitter versus your dials, right? And I'm kind of, I don't know, they're both. I'm on Twitter a lot, but I'm also old school Chelsea. Like, I've been the Chelsea supporter for 20 plus years, and I've had season
You
tickets.
sound like Joe Cole, so that helps.
So I've had Joe Cole, Steven Gerrard, Christian Pulisic. They're my three at the minute. So
I'm not sure about Christian Pulisic. Did you see someone else in the chat said earlier, Sean Dyche? I'm not sure about that.
I get that because of my voice. Yeah, I get that too. That's fine. But yeah, so we're not sure. We're not paid to be sure, by the way. So, but yeah, Nagelsmann there is a fear of that, right? That a lot of the old school Chelsea and I don't blame him, by the way. I really don't blame him, because if you can't back Frank Lampard, who can we back at this point, right? Yeah. John Terry's probably thinking, nah, I don't want to, because we're all touting him to come back, right? If I'm him now, I'm going, ooh, I don't know, I've got a legacy. And hopefully you would think that whatever happens with Lampard, the legacy is never tainted, and it shouldn't be, because Lampard, fantastic player, and he's also smoothly transitioned us into this new sustainable Chelsea. So he's done what he's had to do. Is he maybe the guy that gets us all the way? That's remaining to be seen. Even I'm a little bit hesitant of that now. Yeah. But he's done his job, so we should never take that legacy for him. But yeah, Nagelsmann, he has that fear, right, of coming in and upsetting a lot of fans. And this is very true, and I'll keep saying this. If Lampard had the fans in, this would not be that bad. This would not be as bad as it is now if Lampard had Stamford Bridge full, because those of you who think that he would be booed, you're wrong. Lampard would be backed to the hilt if he had 42,000 fans at Stamford Bridge. Away fans, even more so. The 5,000 away fans would be backing Lampard all the way. So Lampard's missing out on that. I think this is a situation where Lampard would really have benefited from having fans, and I think he's been unfortunate. Not his fault. It is what it is, and it's not an excuse. It's just something that's true. Chelsea fans will be backing Lampard right now. He got the banner from We Are the Shed, which people argue about, but it is there. It is what it is. It's been paid for. And Lampard would be back. So I think Lampard misses that, to be honest. So, yeah, there's always that fear of you replace Lampard, the old school are upset, and the new school are fine. If you get Nagelsmann in, if you keep Lampard, the new fans or the Twitter fans are upset and the old school are happy. So you can never win. And if Lampard's dividing the fan base, it's always going to be divided. And that's football, game of opinions.
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I will, put my hands up and say myself, after those fair few very, very good wins, very, very good displays of football, in late November, early December, whatever. Even I was saying, not saying we will win the league, but saying, we might, you never know. Other teams were in bad form and everything. Yeah, sure, got ahead of myself, but I guess that's, where being a fan comes into it, because if you don't get ahead of yourself as a fan, when do you? Because how boring is life then? But the situation is still this. When we appointed Lampard, we knew we were in a tricky situation. We didn't really have that many other options. Who else was going to take the job? Yes, we finished third, but lost Hazard, transfer ban. Who else was going to take it? Lampard stepped up. Everyone knew it was kind of a bit too soon for him. Who knows what Frank Lampard's managerial career will be after Chelsea, whenever after happens. Will he end up like Gary Neville, that just says, okay, I've tried it, I've had enough now? Or will he go into other clubs, and where will he manage? Well, can you imagine Frank Lampard managing other Premier League clubs? I'm not sure. I mean, he played for Man City, so who's to say no? But it's weird. I mean, yeah, of course, it might be 5, 6, 7 years too soon for Frank, and maybe, who knows? Maybe we'll get it back again. We got Jose back again, but at this point, like you said, I'm hesitant of thinking, will he get us to where we want to be? And where we want to be is winning the Premier League, challenging for the Champions League, and I don't really see that, but I'm not 100% sure whether Nagelsmann does that either, because he's not exactly proved that either. I mean, whenever they're about to overtake Bayern Munich and about to go top of the league, they drop points somehow, with the stupidest goals you'll ever see, like against Wolfsburg on the weekend. And in the Champions League, they just about scraped past Man United, but still losing 5-0 to Man United. Good luck with that. I know Frank lost 4-0 to Man United, but Frank's Frank. Someone that's not Frank, losing that debut game 4-0 will go very, very differently to how it went for Frank. So absolutely. Those are things that we have to be worried about. And we are getting near the end. Well, about to finish here. But I guess I'll just ask you one thing, and that is, obviously we'll play Luton now. We've got Burnley after that, and Wolves after that, and then Burnley after that. Just honestly, what do you think will happen in those 3 games? Do we win all of them? Do we lose some of them? What do you think happens in the next 3 games? So
the next 3 are Luton, Burnley, and Wolves. Is that correct?
Yeah, Luton, Wolves, Burnley, I think.
I mean, we're beating Luton, and if we're not, then I'm in hiding, to be honest. I'm out. I'm not paying enough to take that abuse. No, in all seriousness, Luton will win. Wolves is next, then Burnley.
Yeah.
I think we have to get we got to win. Let's be honest, we've got to win. I'm not naive enough or loyal in a blind sense to say that we don't need to win, because we need to win. I still think, from what I'm told, this is me more going off what I'm told now. If we drew against Wolves, he wouldn't be sacked. That's what I'm told, right? Okay. And this is, by the way, we're a few days out here, so this could change in 4 days. So don't go quoting me or saying, because it could change, right? The Luton game could change something. So I would think that, but he have to win it. We have to win at least one of them 3 games. At least two, because it's Luton. Yeah. We have to win at least 2 of them 3 games. If we get two wins and a draw, I think Lampard will still be in the job. I think maybe anything less than that, you start to worry. If we lose a few of them, he could go.
Yeah. The problem is just, okay, we have these 3 games, but if I don't remember the schedule perfectly, but after these 3 games is when it starts getting tough. Don't we play like Tottenham and then the Champions League comes in, and then we play United and Liverpool after playing Atletico Madrid. So it's all well and good thinking we should go into this. I will put this out there and play devil's advocate a little bit, saying if we want any chance of doing well in that run, even if Lampard maybe doesn't quite deserve it yet, and we would love to give him those next 3 games, shouldn't we rather get rid now and see if Tuchel can do anything for those games? I don't know, because I'm not very hopeful for those games, I will admit. Of course, if the next 3 games could go well, confidence could come back and very many things could change. But those things in a row, that could be 6-7 defeats in a row. Whoever the manager is, that could be 6-7 defeats in a row, and that won't look good. That won't look good in the table, that won't look good in the club.
That wouldn't be good. And the thing is, right, the Fulham game should have given us a little bit more confidence, and it did. But the only reason that it didn't maybe transpire against Leicester even more is the fact that we rotate the team so much, which is where Lampard now has to be. If a team gets a result, he's got to be consistent with that team. That's what he has to do now, because you can't be rotating and trying to figure it. At this point, we can't be figuring out our best team. And I know eventually we'll get there, but this is not the time for it. This is the time to solidify, get results. And if the team is confident, confidence is so huge. We've got to build confidence. And if that winning team does well, keep that team and really try and build from there. He has to do that. If he wants to save his job, he knows this. He's sitting in the office right now with Jody Morris. He knows this. So, but yeah, we got to get consistency. We got to get results, and we got to have a consistent, steady approach in the next few games for sure.
Yeah, I agree. One last question I will put to you before we end that here, because I did tell you an hour and we're just over that. Because you just brought up Jody Morris, do you think a situation at Chelsea is that part of Lampard's issue is his own inexperience, but also that every member of the staff is also inexperienced, not inexperienced as a coach, but inexperienced at coaching at this level? And would a solution not just replacing Frank be, but bringing him, I don't know, surely just pay Steve Holland out of the bloody FA? Surely that has to be possible. Surely just Steve Holland would solve a lot of our issues right now.
Yeah, so what I'm told is, I've kind of asked this question. I've poked this question at a few people. And from what I'm told is Steve Holland isn't interested in coming back in that role as an assistant. It's kind of like it's run its course, if that makes sense. I think the only way Stephen Holland would come back is if it's in a bigger role for Chelsea. I think he's enjoying his time, with the FA. So I don't think that's going to be an option, unfortunately. I know people were shouting it and want it, and I would understand why. He knows the club is a very good coach, but I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, I like Jody Morris. Jody Morris has obviously got a very good resume in the coaching world. He won a lot with it, but it's obviously the level he won at, right? Joe Edwards saying very good coach, won a lot, but at the level he won at. I think Chelsea, and I understand it, by the way, Lampard gets a job, you get your mates in, right? If I got the job, I'll get my mates in. Why not? Let's go for it and have a laugh. But obviously, jokes aside, I think Lampard and Chelsea, in hindsight, would have maybe thought, could we have got someone in to, steady the ship? And assistant managers are more important now than they've ever been. Yeah. If you read people's biographies and books, like I've read Alex Ferguson's and others, Alex Ferguson wasn't leading training a lot. Mike Phelan was doing that a lot. When Mourinho was on there sometimes, but it was also Rui Ferrer leading training. A lot of assistant managers are leading training, and they're the glue between the manager and the players, right? So that assistant manager is key. He's a key figure in the club. And Jody obviously has the support of the players. Everyone loves Jody, and the club loves Jody. And I love Jody. I don't want Jody to be gone. But I think Chelsea could have got someone of a nature, of experience, of a leadership that maybe could have bridged that gap a little bit more, and can maybe have helped out Frank a little bit. So, and obviously that's where someone's put 2 and 2 together right at Sky and gone Avram Grant. But That was pretty much.
That was funny to me. That was so funny.
Everyone's aware that it's easy to do, right? Because people are seeing that would maybe make sense. Like getting the assistant in is more experience, and also people know that Roman and Alvaro Grant are friends. So it was an easy story to put together, but that's not the answer. It's got to be something. But again, who's out there? Who's out there?
That's the issue. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an expert on all the assistant managers available at whoever else, but I mean, they're obviously a lot less known than the first team managers, and proper first team managers aren't going to just turn up to be assistants to Frank Lampard. And some people have even suggested get, I don't know, whoever in, Allegri or whoever, and make Frank the assistant. Yeah, no, Frank's ain't going to do that. Just absolutely not. You don't go from manager to assistant and just deal with that and take it on the chin. It's just not it. And the same with John Terry will never play second fiddle to Frank Lampard ever. Like that wasn't the case as players. They were, if anything, even equals. But if anything, JT was slightly above just because captain and whatever else. So that's not going to happen either. So I just put it out there because I think it is a bit of an issue. But like you said, who else is there? But we have been going for around 5 minutes. First of all, Dan, thank you very much for coming on. Hopefully we can do this again at some point in the future. Maybe I'll even end up on your guys' podcast at some point. Who knows?
Absolutely.
What comes around swings around, or whatever the expression is. I'm not good with English expressions. I don't know why I try sometimes. But anyway, I do appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in. We still have nearly 200 people watching, which I love from every single one of you. So please be sure to smash the subscribe button and the like button. That'd be sick. Like I said a couple of times already, be sure to check out Dan's Twitter down in the description, or just type in Macca Sport onto Twitter. Follow him, check out all of the stuff. He says, he tweets, he writes, the articles, of course, as well. Like he has proved today, he does know his thing. He has a couple of the connections, so he does know a few things. So, check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, I think I'm going to leave it there. Again, thank you, Dan, for coming on. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, no matter what, upwards and onwards, we have to move on and just stay positive, I guess. And I'll see you next time.